Good afternoon, Packers fans. Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat, coming to you live on the Cheesehead TV social channels. Hope you're all having a phenomenal President's Day wherever you are. Hope you had off. I didn't. Live X, it's not a holiday at Live X, so we are working on President's Day as we are here as well on Cheesehead TV. Hope you all had a good weekend. Hope you're all relaxing. Not a ton of news, clearly, after the Aaron Jones restructure on Friday. Pretty quiet throughout the weekend. However, today is contract void day. That's right. Lots of void years that have been added on to contracts previously become due today, essentially voiding contracts for a number of guys, which will result in $16.4 million worth of dead money, including contracts for Adrian Amos, Dean Lowry, Jerron Reed, Randall Cobb, Mercedes Lewis, Mason Crosby, and Robert Tonyan. Robert Tonyan, his second year in a row, counting towards dead cap money. 16.4 million dead cap going to be slated to 2023, barring some unreported extension that hasn't come out yet while I go live. Don't think that's going to happen. All those guys will now be slated to become free agents. The Packers can still re-sign them at any moment. However, more than likely they will be hitting the free agent market. Just to put that in perspective, the 16.4 million last season, the Packers had roughly $22 million worth of dead cap space or dead cap charges, led by Zadarius Smith, with a little over $11 million dead cap hit while playing for the Minnesota Vikings. Other guys included Billy Turner and Kevin King, along with a few others, including Robert Tonyan, who were counting towards dead cap while either with other teams or not playing at all. So the Packers are moving in a decent direction as far as getting that number down. However, obviously, they're continuing to use void years in these contracts. They did it just on Friday with Aaron Jones adding a void year to that deal, which already had a void year on it. So they're not out of the woods yet, probably won't be for a number of years. However, there could be some relief coming next year with the new media deals expected to, increase the salary cap significantly. I don't think it's going to wipe this stuff off the books just yet. I don't think any Packers fan should expect that, but it should give them a little bit of relief. All of that said, all those guys set to become free agents, I suspect, like Adrian Amos, Dean Lowry, Randall Cobb, Mason Crosby, I would suspect they've all played their last downs in green and gold. And it feels, unceremonious to say that about somebody like Mason Crosby, but that would be my suspicion. I think there's a chance they bring back Jerron Reed. I think Randall Cobb, potentially, if Aaron Rodgers is back, he could be back. Big Dog as well. But we'll have to wait and see how this decision from Rodgers and then the resulting fallout plays out. With that said, the bit of news out of the way, I wanted to start with a little bit about Preston Smith, who I think is going to be a pretty damn important player for the Green Bay Packers in 2023. I think he had a solid year last year, not a great year, but he had a better year than he's had in his kind of weird trajectory career-wise, where every other year he is up or way down when it comes to his production. Last year, he was decent. He had 8.5 sacks, 20 quarterback hits. And what's interesting is that he got more productive after Rashan Gary kind of went down. 5 sacks and 9 quarterbacks hits in a stretch of 5 games late in the season. That is well after Rashan was out of the picture. Preston stepped up. However, the unfortunate part of that is he was pretty quiet the last 2 games, especially that final game against Detroit when they really needed him. He kind of was MIA. He also missed way too many tackles last year. And I don't think I'm telling tales out of school. I think he'd probably agree. You turn on the tape, he missed way more tackles this year than he has in previous seasons. And that's something that has to get corrected and has to get turned around. Now, all of that said, I still think he's a really good football player. And like I said, I think he had a solid year last year. But the Packers are going to need him to be more than solid in 2023 while Rashan Gary returns from this injury. I know Kingsley Enagbare had a really promising rookie year, and I do expect him to take a step. But, man, there is not a whole lot depth chart-wise, and I don't suspect there will be much coming in the way of free agency help when it comes to the edge position. I have little doubt they will target it in the draft, but that's a crapshoot at best. They are going to need Preston Smith to play like out of his mind next year, and he is definitely going to have to hold down the fort while Rashan Gary is returning from injury. Now, like I just said, he did do some of his best work later in the season after Rashan was down. he's got to do so against better competition. He feasted on some poor offensive lines, not strictly, but that was where some of that production came from. He did a really good job against the run. He is a beast when it comes to setting an edge. He doesn't get fooled easily. A lot of the kind of motion and trying to like get guys to take false steps, that doesn't really work on Preston. He is a really disciplined football player, but he's got to produce at a higher level next year, especially the first part of the year while they're waiting for Rashan to get back. And I don't say this, out of malice. I don't say this out of like he had a poor year. Again, I think he had a good year, but he has got to hold it down, given their cap situation and the idea that it's going to be very difficult to bring in, much help. He is going to have to be the shining star, so to speak, until they get Rashan back. And I think he's up for it. Like I said, he's been productive and he's got the tools. We've seen him do it. They got to get more out of him next year. And I think he's got it in him to give him that. Hello to everybody in the comment section. So good to see everybody. Hope you're all doing well. What's up, TikTok? How you doing? Hey, Aaron Rodgers come out of darkness yet? No, he has not. Not that I've seen anyway. I love Ian starting the chat with just trade Rodgers already. Would that it were that simple. Ryan, thanks for the super chat. What do you think will happen first? Bucks host the NBA All-Star Game, and the Packers host the NFL Draft. Ooh, that's a good question. I know they've been chomping at the bit to get the draft in Green Bay. Thought we were close a couple years ago, but that can seems to have been kicked by the NFL as the event has gotten bigger and bigger. I know Detroit was just awarded the NFL Draft in a year that I think the Packers were hoping to, get it in Green Bay. Man, I don't know. I don't know the first thing about the NBA or the mechanics or politics around the NBA All-Star Game, so I couldn't really say. I just know the Packers have been close with the draft, and I do think it will happen. I know there's been a lot of kind of hand-wringing and worrying about the hotel situation, the size of the event. It's become so big. I mean, they regularly pull 200,000 plus people, at these events now, these NFL drafts, wherever they've been, whether down in Dallas and in Chicago and Philadelphia. I think the Packers will have to, allay some fears with the league that they're going to be able to handle that kind of crowd. But I do think it'll happen eventually. I think they'll have to rope in, they'll make it part of Wisconsin. They'll have shuttles most likely, like from Milwaukee, to get people up, I would guess, because that's a whole hell of a lot of people for Green Bay to host on its own. Well, we'll see. We shall see. Paul, what's up, man? How are you doing? Dan, thank you for the super chat. Do you think Quay Walker will have a target on his back next season because of the pushing? Thank you for 1010 content. Oh, that's really nice of you to say. Thank you so much. And thanks for the support with the super chat. No, I don't think he will. I don't think people will have a target on his back. I don't think defenders or opponents will have a target on his back like to try to injure him or anything like that. Now, could teams go after him trying to goad him into overreacting? That's a possibility. There's zero doubt, that you spend the week doing your homework on guys. And if Quay is quick triggered like that, right? Anytime post scrum, right? Like the echo of the whistle is just ended. Maybe you give him a little extra shove to try and get him to react, along the sideline. Maybe you try and brush up against him after the whistle, just trying to get a reaction. Could that be in play? It wouldn't surprise me. He is going to have to learn to control that aspect of his game, his emotions, etc. And he's talked a good game about it. I mean, he was absolutely, contrite after the incident against Detroit, but he's going to have to put those words into action. And yes, I think teams will test him a little bit. ADF, thanks for the super chat. What are your expectations if Love takes over? Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I think because of the fact that they've kicked the can so many years trying to get back to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, if they were to transition to Jordan Love, you look at their salary cap situation and what they're going to be able or not be able to do to, provide support or bring in help or whatever. It's mostly going to be draft driven. It's going to be a building process. I think the playoffs are a goal. How realistic that will be, I have no idea until I see the final kind of roster, right? But yeah, I think you got to tamper down those expectations. You certainly aren't sitting here going, "Oh, they're going to go to the Super Bowl in Love's first season as a starter." And I understand it's title town, and I understand championships are what it's all about. But realistically, yeah, the first season under Jordan Love, especially given their situation, it's going to be having to be the start of building something, and hopefully getting experience with Jordan, with Christian Watson, with Toure and Dobbs, and that offense really gelling and probably operating a little differently, all while the defense hopefully finds a little bit more consistency. Now, look, do I want him to win a Super Bowl? Of course, absolutely, 1,000%. But realistically, Jordan Love is a first-year starter playing 17 games. The playoffs are the goal. I mean, that's. I don't think that's being unkind. I don't think that's telling tales out of school. I think that's realistic. Let's see. How much worse can we do with Love? Super Bowl is the only goal each season, and we haven't achieved that with Rodgers the last 12 seasons. Time to move on. I know a lot of people share that sentiment. Sideline Report. I said last year it was time to move on from Rodgers simply because they had been trying and trying and trying and just haven't been able to close the deal. And I think the last two seasons prior to this season really summed it up. You know, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen these last 2 years, and it didn't. And rather than hanging on, rather than just kind of gripping the edge of the cliff, hoping you can get back to a Super Bowl, I'd much rather start down in the valley and try to build myself up and get back to the mountaintop with my new guy. And that's the difference. That's the whole difference, you know? And the more they kick this can, the more they have this dead money issue, the more they're trying to like juggle a million different things to try and make it work with 12, the harder they're making it on themselves when they eventually have to turn the page, because that's coming regardless. You know, that moment will arrive. So that, I think, like I said, I think a lot of people agree with your sentiment there. What else we got here, folks? Am I coming to Indy for the Combine? Yes, Ryan, I am. I will be having a tweet up during the week, probably on Thursday night. I'm not quite sure yet on the day, but most likely Thursday evening, I'll be doing some kind of gathering. It'll be downtown. Last year, we had people driving out another part of Indy. This time, I'm going to try and keep it downtown. But yes, tweet up in Indy, most likely Thursday evening. I'll have the information here on the YouTube community page. We'll have it on the website and on the Patreon and Carry the G, all that. We'll make sure everybody knows what's going on and when. Looking forward to it. I always love my time in Indy. I always love the Combine. It's always fun. As for the rookie class of last year, who do you see taking a big year 2 jump? Sean Ryan. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to go back from where he was his rookie year, right? Interestingly, you know what's funny is I think we'll see a big jump from Romeo Dobbs. Christian Watson obviously has got this insane ceiling. The athleticism jumps off the page of the screen. You do not doubt that Zach Tom will be in the mix. I do not doubt for a moment that he will fight for a starting job, if not win one. I think, you know, Quay Walker, I think you saw all the excitement around his game, the athleticism. Devontae Wyatt, hopefully he earns at least a regular kind of part in the rotation, if not a starting gig. But for me, you look at Romeo Dobbs, you saw how good he can be throughout the preseason and even at spurts in the regular season. But I tell you what, you start getting consistency out of that kid, and he was very inconsistent last year. You start getting him consistently involved and get consistent production and involvement in the offense, you're going to see a big, big jump. And I'm really excited for it. Now, as I always talk about when we talk about jumping from year 1 to year 2, it really comes down to the player. You know, the team can do so much as far as what they're allowed to do in the offseason, and then what they're asking guys to do within the offense, their work as far as studying the scheme and putting that into practice on the kind of walk-through stuff when they put it on its feet. But ultimately, the work that really counts and will have these guys taking that big jump from year 1 to year 2 is what they're doing right now. It's what they're doing away from the cameras, away from the facility, when they're on their own and they're left to their own devices. Are they working? Are they grinding? Are they doing it? And I'm not saying they can't have lives. I'm not saying they can't go on vacation or whatever. But man, this is the time when the dudes who go and make that big jump from year 1 to year 2, this is it right now. The work you're putting in. Those are the guys that do it. So I'm excited to see who hits the ground running next season. ADF, what's up? Thanks, man. I hope the Vikings release Z and he gets just as spiteful to them as he is towards Green Bay and plays them and sacks Kirk 8 times. Man, I love Zadarius. I understand that it ended poorly in Green Bay, but I love him as a player. And I said it last summer when he was, talking the junk, and even after that first game when he was, really happy about beating the Packers, whatever. Man, he's great when he's on your team, and he doing the same things in Minnesota that he was doing his first year in Green Bay, as far as really winning over the fans and trying to change the culture. And I have no animosity towards Z, none. And I get lots of Packers fans don't like him, but man, I get it. Man, if Cheesehead TV released me, you damn well better believe I'd be signing with like Packers Wire to try and get back with them, back at them. Hell yeah, I'd be sticking it to Corey Banke. That's what I'd be doing. Joe, thanks for the super chat. Will A.J. Dillon get a second contract from the Packers? Ooh, good question. I think a big part of it is how he plays this season. I think you're going to look at the totality of the body of work rather than just what has he done lately. I think he definitely took a step back production-wise this year, but as I've said often and will continue to say, I think the Packers didn't do him any favors with how they utilized him. But I think they will look at the total body of work all 4 years, and then probably if he's productive and gets back to looking like his old self, hopefully with the help of the scheme, there's a good chance. I think they love him as a player. They love him as a person. He absolutely carries the G and represents the team off the field the way you want. They just need a little bit more production out of him. And I think it would help if, like I said, they utilized him a little bit in a much better way. MR Hull, thanks for the super chat. Nags, absolutely love what you do here. Keep up the great work. What are your essential reads for Packers fans, and what are your personal faves? Thank you so much. It's really complimentary. Thank you. I actually did a video last year of a ton of Packers books that I've read numerous times, books I love. My all-time favorite is definitely When Pride Still Mattered by David Marinis. You can't beat it. It is not just a great Packers book. It is a great biography of a great man by a great writer. You can't beat it. It's one of the best things you will ever read. And I'm talking like anything. It's such a good piece. It's just absolutely fantastic read. Of course, the other books I adore, Vince Lombardi on football. That's an old school volume. Obviously, I just got a copy of the original finally after I've had the reprinted edition forever. Instant Replay. That's a classic you got to read. And of course, the more modern, the Cliff Crystal book that came out now 2 years ago. Got to read that. And People's Team, Mark Beach's book. Got to read that. And Life After Favre. The great book on the transition from Favre to Rodgers. Highly recommended. There are a ton of others I'm not mentioning here just because I don't want to take the whole time talking about books, but those are all worth your time and worth a read. Ryan, thanks for the super chat. I wish they would have the draft 2 or 3 weeks after the combine. I hate that they drag stuff out. Yeah, but that's what the Packers, the NFL want to do. The whole point of the schedule in the offseason is to make sure and to ensure that it is as close to, 365 days a week as possible for the NFL. They have the longest offseason. They want to make sure that they're in the headlines as much as possible throughout it. I mean, it's so funny now when we're on social media and we have all these on this day in Packers history or NFL history, and they're like, the Packers won the NFC Championship to go to the Super Bowl. And it's like not even wild card weekend yet in the NFL these days. It's so funny how they've slowly and surely, I remember when I was a kid and people would talk about, the NFL really wants to expand their season deep enough so that they get the Super Bowl on President's Day weekend. And back then, I thought that was insane. This year, they're a week away from doing it. That's nuts to me. I just had that realization the other day. I was like, I remember when that sounded insane and impossible. And now they are literally a week away, which, by the way, is probably coming when they get that 18th game, which the owners are gunning for. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun having Monday off after the Super Bowl. What do we do at tight end this year? Good question, TikTok. Pray. No, I suspect, and I know Tunyon is set to be a free agent after they didn't renegotiate or restructure his deal prior to today. I think they'll bring Tunyon back on a team-friendly deal, something with incentives. I think this is my guess, is that he is ready to kind of regain the form we saw a few years ago. There's little doubt in my mind that he was playing much, much better the last month of the season and looked much more like the kind of really productive Robert Tunyon we saw a few years ago, rather than the guy who struggled out the gate in 2021 and then hurt himself. Clearly, coming back from a major injury is always an issue. It's always going to take a certain amount of time. Guys recover in different kind of time frames. Man, you talk about a guy who knows the scheme. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is, he's going to know where to be, and is a really good pass catcher. I mean, that's the thing. Yes, he has to work on his blocking a little bit, and I think he's gotten better in that regard. But man, that's a valuable piece that you can probably get for under market value, which is what you need to do when you're in the cap situation the Packers are in. So I think Tunyon is most likely back, but on top of that, I think they got to draft one. I'm not saying I'm going to sit here and tell you they're going to draft somebody at 15. I think I'd be very surprised if that happened, but some point, probably day 2 or day 3, they'll add to the position. That'll be my guess right now. What else we got? What else we got, folks? ADF, thanks, man. I have Z's jersey, so I'm just like you. I hear you, man. He was great. I loved him. He and Preston with the co-interviews in the locker room. Stuff was great. Loved it. Z had half a sack over the last 7 games. Oh, I know. He was blanked in that Packers game. I love it. AJ needs a run blocking center in front of him. Mick, I think he just needs better blocking in general. And they utilized him on so much zone stuff that, look, I think he can be productive with those zone runs out of shotgun. He's done it before. Go back and look at the tape against Tennessee on that snowy night his rookie year. And he runs a bunch of zone in that game, and he's really productive, and it's great to watch, and you're really, excited about it. But, man, they were not as good up front this season at all. Oftentimes when AJ was getting the ball. So, yeah, would it help to have better play at center? No question about it. And that's why I've said a couple of times, Josh Myers has to have competition this year. But I think across the board, and again, I don't think I'm being unfair here. I think across the board, they need to be better, especially the interior. I think that's where they need a lot more consistency, because I do think there were so many times when AJ would get to the line of scrimmage and there was just nothing available for him, So that's definitely in the cards for next season. Run to Daylight is a good read. It is. Run to Daylight. It's a classic. Got to have it. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to get going. I can't thank you enough for hanging out, talking Packers each and every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Cheesehead TV social channels. Please do me a monster favor. Hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then tell your friends and tell your family. Cheesehead TV. We are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night. Go Pack Go.